Hello guys, this is going to be a little video about one of the paintings I made at Paul's place. Um, I have quite a few of these laying around, and it was a very productive few weeks. It was a month I stayed there, and it was productive, but it was challenging. Every day we had to do it. But it was challenging because, for me, it was like I had to forget what I knew and do something that kind of went against all of the natural impulses I'd developed all my life through, bad education, basically. The fellow I was there with, Joe, he didn't have as hard a time with it as I did, I don't think. He had a much easier time with it because I think, well, he was more of a, what'd you say, like an uncarved block, right? Like somebody who, I think he was coming into it new. As in, I don't think he'd painted until he got there. Actually, I'm not sure. I can't remember, but I think he hadn't painted in oils, and so he took to it really naturally, and he just got on with it. Whereas me, I had a lot of struggle with it. I had a lot of struggle with it. It was really hard, and Paul was always telling me off, always smacking me with a whip, basically. um, I couldn't have painted something like this a few years ago, or even 5 years ago. And it seems like a very simple painting. Like, why couldn't I paint this a few years ago? If I'm such a, if natural talent is, if natural talent is like a real thing, then why can't everyone with natural talent paint this? And it's because we have bad teachers in art schools, basically, who teach us the wrong things, and then we pick up these bad habits, and then before we know it, we forget how to draw. Because they teach us in a way to just just paint whatever, just doodle like you're surrealist, follow like your intuitions, and don't think about anything. When really there's a lot of rules to drawing, a lot of rules, and a lot of rules to painting. Um, I couldn't draw. I'd totally forgotten to draw. And I started to take Paul's teaching seriously last year, and in this last year, which is basically about a year now, a year November, a year. I started to really take seriously the composition drawings. I started to take seriously, doing still lifes, drawing outside. I took seriously a lot of these things, and I've done a lot of stuff. As you can see on my profile, there's a lot of stuff. Everything I've uploaded, more or less, is new. I haven't actually shared very much, if anything, of my old contemporary artwork that I used to make before. I haven't spoken about it. Well, I've spoken a bit about it, but I haven't shared any of it. And in a way, it's because it's not very good. Oh, what's up with the camera? I hate it when it does this. But yeah. So stupid. But yeah. So I am. Yeah. Paul had to straighten me out with my drawing, because my drawing was all over the place. I couldn't get proportions right. I couldn't do any of this stuff. And actually, I think I remember when I was in school, because I went to school with my teacher in high school was very much into, she was into classical art, let's say, traditional art, but like so many people these days, she didn't know about really how it was really made. And so, like everyone else these days, she defaulted to the sort of classical realist approach, which says that it's all about naturalism and drawing things and rendering and such. And so in high school she taught us that, and in high school I developed a little bit of a kind of skill for rendering, and I even remember telling myself and realizing that I could copy things very well. I would draw the grids, I would draw the grid lines and I would get the proportions right. I would use the pencil to measure. But over the last, 10 years, I'd say, ever since I went to real art school, art college, like university, I totally forgot those skills. Those skills had gone out the window, and I'd basically forgotten to draw, and I couldn't draw anything. So even though, I've uploaded loads of still lives, a lot of them, the proportions are just all wrong. And that was one of the first things Paul said to me when I arrived. He said, we're going to sort out your drawing. That's one of the first things we're going to do is sort out your drawing. And I said, okay. And he did. He had me hold the pencil out in front of me and measure everything, and he was very strict about where I put down these lines, you see, basically I had to draw this painting before I painted it, so I had to lay out the proportions on the board first, and it took ages, and it was really frustrating because I just wanted to get on with and throw the paint around, because that's what I'd been doing for 10 years, just throwing paint around like a child, like it's just mud or something. But this isn't mud, this is paint, and this is not contemporary art. This is a very sophisticated craft. It's something that requires a lot of artistry and skills. It's not just throwing paint around like a baby. So Paul really made me sit there and put down all the lines first, every single little mark. Mark goes here, and then, there, and the whole thing, so that it's properly proportioned. And I'm not going to talk about its deficiencies, but I would still say it's not perfect. So I had to lay down everything first, and then afterwards came the painting, and I had to get in there with I didn't find it too difficult, especially compared with the melon that I painted. The melon is over here. This one's gone. This one's going. My mum wants this one, so I'm giving this one to my mum. So she's getting that one, and I sold the other one to a nice lady in a town near Paul's place. Anyway, this painting here was not as difficult to paint as those melons, because the melons, for me anyway, I felt like they had a lot more. They're organic things. They have a lot more colours and things like that going on in them. There's a lot more things, strange things going on with the colours and the shades, especially since they're like bumpy objects. This pot, on the other hand, is relatively like smooth. Has a smooth surface, has very predictable contours. It's nice and round. It's an artificial object, and it's just a very cute object, but it's got a very simple surface. I did another painting of some pots, which was very difficult, and the reason why it was so difficult was because not only it wasn't because of the surface, it was because the colours on the paintings, like the colours on those things, like the pots had these really complex drawings on them and really complex patterns on them, and it was very hard to replicate. Not only to replicate them, but then to paint the rest of the thing in. So Paul then had me do the background, I think, and fill in the main colours. Now this is not so simple either. It's not a matter of like observing and things like that, because the pot is set in a backdrop that I've completely invented. I wasn't going to paint the backdrop to, there was the pot, and behind the pot was Paul's painting, it was his studio, there's all this stuff behind it, but for the sake of making a great painting, we don't draw everything and render everything accurately. We invent a little bit. So the background is a special type of mid-tone. It's like a special type of middle tone. It's a type of ochre colour, like a brown, yellowy brown colour. And it changes. Look at this. It's got like this abstract element to it. It changes. It goes light here, darker here, and then dark here for the shadow, darker here, dark, but a bit lighter. Then it gets lighter, and it goes around. So the whole thing is like light, dark, light, dark, light. It goes around the thing. And here, just after this bit of shadow, it goes light again. Because behind the pot, you know, if you can see here, there's like the surface of a table or something. Behind the shadow, there's going to be that. So it goes light, dark, dark, light, dark, dark. So that's a decorative thing that we invented. You know, Paul helped me paint this, obviously. I didn't just come up with it. I was there to study. So we invented this decorative thing. And then when we went to paint the pot, we decided dark on this side, dark on this side, dark here, and highlight of lights here. But it's not like, but it's like light to dark, you see? Light here, dark here. Actually a bit light there. Yeah. Light here, dark here. But it's all lighter than the background, except for this side. It kind of fits nicely with what's in the background. So the background here is dark, here is slightly lighter, and it all works nice. So I put these blue squiggles on. Anyway, I'll talk about the white first. The white wasn't too difficult. Think of this, it's a ceramic white pot, and it's got these lovely like reflections here, lovely light reflections that I just mushed on there because and I just I just did it like boom, like that. And that's how it's done in a lot of the old master paintings. Like, we think of old masters as like terribly just like rendered, everything is like looks perfect and accurate and photorealistic, but no, that's not true. When you actually go and see an old master painting, which, you know, a lot of us don't do as often as we like, but when we actually, I mean, from a distance it looks like everything's been rendered properly, but when you go up close to it, that's not the case. There's a lot of things, there's a lot of clever tricks done there with paint. And not only that, but, you know, it reveals to you that, you know, guys like Monet and the Impressionists, they weren't really inventing anything new. They were just trying to paint like the old masters were painting. You know, Pissarro, Renoir, and these guys. They weren't trying to invent anything new. They were trying to do something that the old masters did. They were trying to go back. And they maybe exaggerated the painterly aspects a bit more because, you know, the kind of free-flowing paint a bit more, maybe because, you know, at that time it was more commonplace that paintings would have flat and very, you know, illusionistic aspects that, you know, are in the opinion of the Impressionists and the Modernists, these were not attractive aspects to painting, and I would agree with that, because they turn a painting into an image and not a painting. So we always must remember that a painting isn't supposed to be a photograph. It's not supposed to be like an image. It's not supposed to be like anything else. It's supposed to be a painting, and it's supposed to be an artistic object that you appreciate for its artistic elements. And that is something that you will do naturally when you're put in front of a real painting, because you will be sort of shocked by the awe of by the kind of, you will be out in awe of what you're looking at. It will be clear that it's a work of art and not a piece of propaganda like art is today, basically. Just ideas. It's an image these days. Whereas this painting and old master paintings, which is, you know, and old master paintings are more about artistry, artisticness. And it's when you're actually in front of something like that, we will forget because it's so not a part of everyday life anymore. But when you're in front of something that is artistic and incredible, you have to appreciate. It's a sublime experience. Think of it as something like when you go to a place like Paris, and, you know, the way I'm thinking about it is like when you're in front of a beautiful piece of architecture or a beautiful cathedral, you know, you're stunned by the artistic aspect of the building, because the building has so much there that is not necessarily, you know, not really necessary to the structure, but it's there to look beautiful, and it's there as a monument to craft, and it's there to just show off how brilliant we are artistically, and that's a beautiful thing. It's grand. Yeah, and this as well is, you know, I'm gonna say, you know, I believe that Paul is one of the only people, if not the only person I know of in the world, who is carrying the torch, carrying the flame of the old masters with him. I don't believe anyone else is doing this, and I believe that he's passing it on and teaching it to others now, and I'm one of those students, so I hope that I carry that flame. The flame that begins in Italy, in Florence, or maybe a little bit before, but, you know, perhaps with Giotto, they say, and I think Giotto was a Florentine, but perhaps with Giotto, but definitely with Raphael. And that flame has been carried for 500 years, and it has stopped. The flame, it's not out, it's nearly out. The flame has nearly stopped burning, because we are living in the age of contemporary art, and contemporary art is not art. It is propaganda. It is non-artistic. It's stupid, and it is an offense to real art, like Raphael, like Titian. It's an offense to everything that was considered art before 50 years ago. And I believe that I am trying to return to something. I'm trying to bring something back and keep the flame alive to real art. And this, I think, is a good representation of it. And there's much more to come. Anyway, I'm going to keep talking about the painting. Nice whites here, and this represents exactly what the pot was saying to me. But when you look at it closely, there's highlights here, highlights here, highlights here, and then there's dimmer bits. And I've kind of been very, I put dim bits, duller bits, lighter bits, duller bit, lighter bit. There's a light bit here, a dull bit here, a light bit here, a light bit here, a dull bit here. It goes dull here, light here, and the thing is, when you actually mix these things together, it makes it look a lot better. So there's a lot of things that I'm doing here with the painting where it's not about rendering the thing perfectly, even though it is, a nice representation of it, but it's about making it look nice. And the thing does look nice in real life anyway, but when you paint something, it looks even better, because paint just makes things look better. I don't know why, it just does. And then around here, around the edges, if I can get that right, I've blurred the edges. That makes it look great too. I mean, I shouldn't really be giving away these secrets. I don't know. But this is to be taught anyway. I mean, maybe, I'd like to teach people how to do this once I get so good at it. But right now, I'm still kind of practicing a lot. And I'm trying to get back into painting. It's just hard because the thing is now I really know what I'm aiming for. And now I really know it's possible. And so now, artists talk about resistance and creative block. And usually what they say in contemporary art is they say, oh, you're just supposed to break through it, and then once you break through it, you're all good. But that's silly, because that's a relativistic way of seeing it. It's like, oh yeah, and then you broke them through it, and then you made something, and then that's it. That's your art. You don't need to measure yourself up against anyone. It doesn't matter. Anything you make is good. So just make anything, and you're all good. But that's not how it is, because for a painter like me, if I'm getting resistance, it's not because I'm not making something. It's because I can really see. I'm really measuring myself up against the greatest: Rubens, Titian, Raphael. And I'm really sitting in front of a canvas and I'm thinking, wow, I want to paint this thing, but damn, I want to make it as good as that. And that can be very daunting. But it's a challenge that I've accepted, that I have to go ahead with, and that I will do. I will go with. And this melon here is very good. I love this one. But I'm not talking about this one. I'll make another video about this one. The other one was even better, I think. But I'm getting there. And do you know how big that is for me? Like, it was about 6 or 7 years ago, I actually went to a proper art gallery, a proper museum in Vienna, to actually look at some old masters. Actually, it was a friend of mine who took me there. He's quit art, he's become an actor, and good for him. But he took me to this old masters museum, like the National Gallery in Vienna. And he said, we're going to go look at these paintings. He got me into this, and I still see him to this day. He's a good friend. He got me into it. He showed me these Rubens, and I was just struck. And I couldn't stop looking at them. And then I think it was from that day that I decided I'm going to try and paint like this. And at the time, I was actually attending the conceptual art course at the Academy of Fine Arts in Vienna. And we were, oh god, it was horrific. I mean, it was led by this like horrible conceptual artist, and all the students were making like video compilations of like the most horrific shit ever. It was not art. It was horrible stuff. It was all political, and it was all horrific, and it was all, yeah, I'm not going to go into it too much, but you know, the last thing that they displayed before I left the room was a video compilation that this little girl had made of animals being slaughtered, and it was about, you know, the environment and blah blah blah, and I just thought, my god, what the fuck am I doing in this classroom? I need to get out of here. So I got up, I left the room, and I walked straight to the museum to sit in front of the Rubens painting, and I never went back. The teacher then called me up a few weeks later, said, where have you been? We're going to fail you. And I said, look, don't fail me. I got someone else to pass me in the end, so I could get my diploma. Not that I needed it, but you know, I narrowly avoid. You know, I could have dropped out of art school. I just never did because it cost so much money. I just thought I'm going to stick it out. And in the end, I'm kind of glad I stuck it out. A lot of people would have dropped out, but I'm glad I stuck it out because it taught me a lot about these people and the way they think. You know, I stayed there and I listened to them and I observed the way they were. Contemporary art is really not a good thing, man. I've spent too much time with these people. Anyway, as I continue painting, you see, I put in all the whites and I get it right. You know, dark here, light here, a bit duller in some areas, nice highlights, and then I put in the pattern. There was this lovely blue pattern. This thing is like a Greek pot or something, or like a Portuguese pot or something with the blue and white. And I put in these blue little marks, but these are just, I haven't tried to accurately put them in. I've just boom, 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 and then I put in the white. Nice little flower here. See that? And it's just beautiful, right? It's done on a bit of wood. We had these bits of wood that Paul had collected from. This one isn't one of those, but he had a lot of bits of wood in his in the back of his studio from the Gilets jaunes protests, and it was great because we'd reappropriate these things into painting materials. We covered them in gesso and just painted over them, and that's actually really interesting if you were to think about that in a conceptual way. You know, here we are making traditional art, which is this very offensive thing to do nowadays. And on top of that, we're repurposing pieces of cardboard, pieces of wood from a Gilets jaunes, you know, a conservatives protest. Gilets jaunes isn't really conservative. I don't really know much about them, but I assume they're conservative. And here we are appropriating also some picket signs from the Gilets jaunes. And that's just interesting, right? You know, that's better than any ideas any stupid contemporary artist can come up with, and we didn't even try to do it. You see, contemporary art is just whatever you want. It's just whatever you can think of, and as long as it's political. So if you wanted to reframe these paintings we did in a kind of, you know, postmodern, you know, conservative or right-wing contemporary art type of way, there it is. There you have it. There's the idea. Repurposed Gilets jaunes picket signs, painted some traditional paintings on them, done. Interesting. I hope you know what I'm talking about, viewers, because, you know, I do rant on about contemporary art a lot. But there's a purpose to that, because in so doing, we can talk about real painting. Because unless we bash contemporary art, then it's very hard to understand real painting, I think. So anyway, so we painted these on these bits of wood. You can see here, it's not very big. You know, here's my hand. And it's quite thick, slightly heavy. It's like a table, like a shaved up table. And then here, you know. And what I want to do is I kind of want to get it framed. I don't know if I want to get it framed. But I want to give it to someone. I want someone to have it. I would like someone to have it quite a lot. So here it is, it's available. And please get in contact if you would like it. Thank you very much.